Living semi-off-grid on a remote island can be a very solitary affair. You can go days, even weeks, without speaking to another person. I've always felt it's a bit pointless to complain about your life, especially one that you chose yourself. And I did choose this, because the benefits far outweigh the negatives, actually. But through those long winter months and sort of dark times, I had a secret weapon, if you like, to get me through, times of loneliness and all of the things that come with that. And my dog was like a conduit. He was like an escape valve, An animal keeps you busy. They need walks, they need love, attention, and in their company you always feel that they're like an add-on. It's a sort of a bolt-on. Your mind adapts to it. You're sort of creating a kind of duality between you and another thing. You're not on your own. It's like an umbilical cord, if you like. Now, as you probably know, because I harp on about it constantly, is that he passed away, unfortunately. It's been about a year and a half now since he passed. So I'd be lying to say that it's been easy just to sit with my own sort of thoughts, left to your own devices, it makes you sort of mulch into your own thinking. You don't have that other to talk nonsense to, even though they don't talk back. They're there, and you can bat ideas off and things like that. I say this at the beginning because it relates to what I'm going to be showing you later on in the video. But in Bo's final year, we would go out for really long, obviously we would go out for long walks everywhere, but we would sometimes go for walks around the local estate here. And when we were out, we'd sometimes spot a herd of deer. There'd be about 8 or 9 of them in an area at various different spots, depending on where we were that day. They would obviously keep us at a really good distance, and we would keep our distance from them, respect their space. They all seem to be female deer, ranging in different age groups. There was some quite young deer, past the sort of the fawn stage, younger deer, and we'd watch this particular herd's numbers grow over time, over the seasons. Now we have rutting season here in September, early November, and during that time, literally all hell breaks loose here on the island when it comes to the mating season. In the dead of night, you'll hear stags roaring from literally miles away. And if you chose to drive at night on the single track roads here, you're more than likely to see the female deer sort of running full pelt and wild-eyed, trying to get away from these, escape these roars that get increasingly louder in a vain attempt to escape the inevitable. I noticed that one of the females in this particular group, she looked older and slightly wiser than the others. To me, I got the feeling that she was sort of the leader of the group, if there is such a thing. We would stare at each other at a distance. Eventually, one of us would break eye contact, and then we'd just go about our separate ways. To me, it felt like a sort of like a quiet understanding between herself and us. Like she was saying, you keep your distance and we'll get along fine. So we respected that. So cut to about, 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago now probably. I was in bed having a morning coffee. It's really quiet here at my location, and you can hear a fairy like fart in the woods. And I heard soft footfalls coming from outside my living sort of bedroom area there, at the end of the van towards the sort of living area. So I got out of bed and I picked up my phone for some reason and just started filming. You don't see that every day. Having a munch on my tree. And I couldn't really believe what I was seeing. It was the same female from the group we'd watched together, Bo and I, and for some reason she'd come to the van, to my location. It's about a mile away from the main estate where we used to walk. Obviously, I was very conscious not to make her aware of me. I didn't want to startle her. And after a few minutes, she sort of had a munch on the trees and the vegetation around here, and then she left. And over the next few days, I started to see her daily, sticking to within maybe a 300-yard radius of the caravan. And this area around here, it started to be her regular sort of stomping grounds. At a distance, I'd watch her, just sort of calmly lift her head and observe me and give me the same, keep your distance vibe, if you like. But after a couple of weeks of daily visits, she started to edge a little bit closer, and to the point where it would be perfectly normal for me to open the caravan at various times a day, and she'd just be there, like within 10, 15 feet away. She would lift her head again and watch me, and I'd sort of put my head down and make sure I wasn't scaring her or really trying to stare her out. So I would say hello and just carry on about my day, taking a bin out or heading off to work or what have you. I need to be clear here. I never try to approach her in any way or close any distance that she wasn't comfortable with. She was clearly comfortable around me for some reason. So I simply just sort of acknowledged that she was there. And it was perfectly normal for me to be sitting out in the awning here and having a beer, and then she would just sidle up next to the van, almost nodding her head to say hello, and then she'd sort of slowly wander off and chewing the vegetation as she went. I didn't interfere with her natural behaviour in any way. It was like we just coexisted in the same space. And then pretty much every day for the next 4 weeks, she, without fail, she would come and see me, and we would check in with each other. And it was a real comfort for me, not having my own dog and companions around anymore. The old sort of feelings of the familiar sort of feelings of connection and like a quiet understanding between a man and an animal had been, that had been buried after Bo's passing. That slowly came back to the surface. But after, say, the 4th week, I noticed that one day she hadn't come to see me, which was fine. And then the next day she wasn't here, and then the day after that, and the day after that, and she didn't come round anymore. So I guess that she must have gone back to the herd, the original herd on the estate. Maybe she just needed a break from the herd, some time out, and then she'd come to see me, and then decided to rejoin them. And I felt a wee bit sad, really, not seeing her anymore. But my mind, whether consciously or subconsciously, had prepared for that eventuality. I knew that it wasn't going to last forever. You know, she didn't belong to me. She was a free spirit, but there was a sense that she'd allowed me to be part of her otherwise private world, and you know, she let me catch a glimpse of something rare and almost majestic in that sort of 4 or 5 weeks that we saw each other. So things went back to normal here, and there were no more visits, except one. About a week and a half ago, maybe almost a fortnight ago, actually. One morning I was back to drinking coffee, just as I was on the day that I first saw her, doom scrolling as you do. I saw her head pop up above the bracken here, just in the field next to me, just up the hill from the bedroom window, and I saw her head appear over the long bracken. So I put my shoes on quickly and grabbed my phone like I did the first time, and I walked up to meet her just to say hello. She decided to come to see me one last time, but she wasn't visiting. I think she was inviting me to witness something important. So all this time, she'd been nursing her newborn, I think, and doing some research after the fact, I found out that they nurse their young away from others, often leaving them for days, and then coming back to sort of check in on them and nurse them for a while, and then they disappear and leave them again. I think they hide them in order to keep them safe in the early critical stages, away from potential predators. And all those times that she came to see me, I was completely unaware that there was a little one just out there on its own in the woods. So of course, me being someone that likes to find meaning in everything and overthink things, and I wanted to look up the meaning of what it was like, if what the meaning was of a deer visiting you. And obviously, the internet being the internet, there are things on the internet that say that there is meaning behind it. But deers are represented a lot in different spiritual and religious traditions. I'm not really a sort of traditional religious person, but according to what I've read, you know, the deer represents symbolic themes of sort of love and divinity. In Buddhist art, for example, deers are often depicted as, you know, attending Buddha, usually kneeling at the base of the white lotus where the great teacher sits. And in Cherokee spirituality, white-tailed deer were a symbol of good luck. But the most interesting part is that they said that deer were considered an other than human person, which I found really interesting. I actually found an article, a really good article by a lady called Sarah Reagan, and it's on a website called Mind Body Green. So I want to shout that out. I got that from this site. But the article goes on to say that if deer are showing up in your life, it's an invitation to learn something from their wisdom, and it also says that you may have the opportunity to embody a deer's qualities in order to heal or open your heart, or when you want to inspire kindness rather than force. And deer represent gentleness and heart intelligence. But the most interesting thing on the article it said was they may present themselves to you if you've been hurt or your heart needs tending. Now, I've always said that I feel Bo around me everywhere here. In the trees, on the paths, everywhere I walk. There's an all-encompassing presence out there, and I'm still trying to figure that out. I've talked about it on a couple of times in other videos, but in those dark days when I buried him next to the Narrows, I got this overwhelming sense of, obviously, you know, you will feel it going through the grieving process, but I felt really angry. And I felt that somehow that the earth had taken him from me, swallowed him up, and disseminated it out onto the land in different, you know, and I still got that sort of essence of him after he was gone when I was out. The earth had taken him from me, and I was angry at the earth. This place around me. I felt angry at my surroundings, and that's the reason why I haven't been out in such a long time. It was actually the deer that made me decide to go out and walk again, and make that the last video that I made after sort of hibernating for the winter and not wanting to go out. And I just wonder if, you know, maybe she knew. You know, maybe she felt the residual pain I was carrying, and, you know, and she was showing me that life is cyclical and moves in circles, not lines. Or maybe she came to gently remind me that the strong love you felt for something doesn't mean it's gone. It just changes form with each cycle. Maybe she was silently prodding me into start thinking it was time to get my own companion again, and it was time to let something new walk beside me. I just wanted to say thank you very much. Since my last video, I've gained 12 subscribers, which is fantastic. And I just wanted to say thank you for that. I'm going to be making lots more videos about lots of different things and lots of different topics. And it'd be great if you could come along with me. It's just nice to share things with people, you know, maybe people are having a rough time, or just an FYI, because I sometimes get quite a few people that are concerned about me personally when I make videos like this. It's not because I'm feeling, you know, or going through something, or I have a warped perception on things around me. I think what it is that I'm a bit of a deep thinker to my detriment. In and of myself, I'm feeling pretty damn good about things at the moment. It was a bit of a struggle to make this today. I've just come off the back end of a killer migraine. So if I look like shit, that's why. But thank you. Thank you for everyone watching. And I'll see you on the next video. Take care.